Hi, my name is Martijn Smit and I'm with VMware. And in this video I will talk about applications within Network Insight. So applications within Network Insight is pretty straightforward. It's a container, logical container, which consists of a couple of tiers where you put your VMs that make up that application. So if I look at the applications list, you will see there's a bunch of applications here. You can see the tiers, and if I zoom in on one, then you will see the specification of this application. So as I mentioned, the application itself is basically just a logical container which hosts a couple of VMs. So in this case you see 6 tiers: a web API management app, and a database load balancing tier, and then the database tier. And you will see a specification. So we got a couple of VMs in here, 2 VMs. And by the way, these are AWS VMs. Yeah. So we're going cross multi-cloud, and basically just IP addresses. You can also include those. So this is very rudimental. Basically what it does is it just gives a name to a specific application that you're hosting in your environment. All right, so this is not the important part. The important part is if I tick this checkbox. So vRealize Network Insight shows and listens to everything that happens in your environment, so also networking traffic. And if you check this tag box, you will see a lovely donut. And I'm just going to focus on the web tier here, which will display all the tiers that are located inside your application. So I'm focused now on the web tier, and you can see that it talks to the management box. Oh, that's pretty straightforward. It talks to the internet and also back and forth, by the way, because the arrows that you see here are basically mean that it goes unidirectional, and if there's no arrows, it goes bidirectional, so it goes both ways. So you can see in one look which tier talks to what, and map that out. So this is great for auditing purposes, but you can also drill down a little bit more. So if I click on the web tier, you will see a pop-up coming up, and basically what this is a summarization for everything that Network Insight has discovered in your network, in your application. So we see the services inside this application, inside this tier. So we got port 80 and port 443 and a bunch of other ports, but you can see the port 80 and the port 443 are the most used. This is sorted by usage. You can see the external services that this tier accesses, and also you can see there's a bunch of services, but it also translates it to a VM name, for example. So this is port 8000, to a specific VM. But the actual data, the data, what is used to determine the services are the actual network flows. So this is, as a network admin would expect it, we've got a source, destination, and this is translated to a VM and then the port. And you got a nice graph which you can hover over to see what the actual bandwidth usage of this specific flow is. So these are all test applications, so you'll see a steady line, but usually it varies, it fluctuates a little bit. All right, so this is all the data that you can see. Well, this is a magnificent amount of data as well. But for me, the most cool part is the recommended firewall rules tab. So if I click on that, you get an overview of all the firewall rules that Network Insight would recommend to you to implement in your environment, in your micro-segmented environment. So basically it takes everything that it sees, translates that to logical objects that you can use to group VMs or IP addresses together. You can see the web tier, you can see the app tier and the API tier, so everything that the application that you've put in the application, and then the the ports on it and the protocols and the allow deny. Well, this is always going to be an allow because it sees this traffic, so yeah, it wants to implement it. But one of the greatest parts is, and the good thing about this overview is that it can help you actually accelerate your security or accelerate your microsegmentation. And the way it does that is that you can export this view either as a CSV file, so you can just look at it and implement it yourself, or you can export it as an XML file. And basically what this does is the XML that comes out of here is NSX API compatible XML. So you can take this this XML and import it into the NSX environment using the API without doing a lot of hard manual labor. So these are single XML files, so you get a bunch of them. For example, for the groups, for the services, and for the file rules itself, there are a bunch of files. But we do have an importer tool that can assist you and take those XML files and import them into your NSX environment itself without you having to do the heavy lifting. And because we have such an importer tool, you might want to don't take into account certain rules. So if you deselect a couple of these file rules and then export it, these file rules that you've deselected will not appear in the XML file. So if you're using the importer tool and you want to skip certain rules because they're happening right now because the application is not microsegmented, but you don't want to have those file rules in place because it's not allowed traffic, then just deselect them and export it, and it will not be in the XML file. All right, so this is the concept of an application, the way that you can group your applications within your network and then get those recommended file rules, because that is the holy grail that you want to work with. But then usually the question I get is, how do I get these applications inside Network Insight? Well, that's a good question. And we can do that in two different ways. So we got, as you would expect, we've got greenfield applications, so new applications that you deploy to your environment. Plus we've got brownfield applications. So I'm going to focus on greenfield applications first. And usually if you've automated your deployment using a certain automation tool, you can hook that up into a certain orchestration tool and provide your own workflows that do stuff when you deploy or your users deploy a new application. All right, so let's switch over to vRealize automation. And if you don't know vRealize automation, I highly suggest you look into it. But it's basically, in a nutshell, it's a multi-cloud, multi-infrastructure, multi-application deployment tool, which can use either new or existing infrastructure and deploy VMs on it in a very simple way. It can also deploy containers and cloud instances, etc. But I'm going to focus on VMs for now because, this is a pretty simple demo to see how you can get those applications over. All right, so I've got a demo here, and it's called a VMworld 3 app blueprint. I will show you first how that blueprint looks. So if I go to design and then the blueprints and then select the VMworld 3 tier app, you will see a very simple layout. All right, so this is, by the way, this is the drag and drop editor of vRealize automation. It's pretty damn awesome. And I've managed to create this blueprint in a couple of minutes. And you can see there's a web, there's an app, and there's a database tier. And these are basically just vSphere VMs, and it hooks back to a vSphere template, which it will deploy if someone requests this blueprint. All right, so this is pretty simple. So let me go back and just request one. So the reason or the description for this one is a VMware demo. Reason for request, demoing, and yeah, lead time is 1 day. That's fine. I don't need it permanently, and then submit. I could also go through the specific tiers and then request more web or app or database service, but in this case, just plain vanilla, that's fine. All right, so now it's gonna deploy the VMs on the background and set up this application, but I don't want to wait on that. So as you can see, I've got a couple of other applications here, and let's have a look at this one. So remember the 818 at the end. So now I'm going to go back to Network Insight and look for the application, the VMware 3 app with the, there we go, 818. And you can see there's 3 tiers in here. We got the database tier, we got the app and the web tier. And if I collapse this once, then you will see there's 2 web VMs, and there's 2 application VMs and 1 database VM. So these VM names came from vRealize, and basically what happens on the background is that if I go back, when it is deploying this application, it's deploying the VMs. And if I look at the actual VMs that have been deployed for this specific application, so the 818, you can see the 36 until the 41, and those are the VM names that come back in Network Insight. So what happens in the background when this application finishes deploying, or this blueprint finishes deploying, a workflow that will get this information, so which VMs have been created, will run against the Network Insight API. And that's a very simple workflow. Now I will also post a blog post on how it actually works. But this is just to show that it is possible to hook up a deployment toolkit like vRealize Automation into Network Insight to automate your application deployment or application creation within Network Insight. So if you do that, all the applications that you deploy are known inside Network Insight, and you can analyze the actual network traffic that goes through that application, and then apply the security rules that it will recommend to you. All right, so it's in a nutshell how you can couple automation systems to Network Insight to automatically fill its database. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about how to import existing applications from a brownfield environment. So if you got existing applications that you want to secure and have those recommended file rules generated for, check out the next video. But for now, thank you for watching, and see you next time.